Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second episode of the Who Killed WCW recap show, where we recap episode 2 of the series Who Killed WCW on Vice TV. And pretty interesting show last night. Focus was on Goldberg, Bill Goldberg, former Atlanta Falcon, got injured and he became a pro wrestler. Now his rise to the top was something. I think he started training like a year before, maybe less. And, debuted in September 97, beat Hugh Morris on Nitro. That first match, I remember watching it. Gene Oakley goes to interview him, and Bill didn't say a thing. And that was like that way for a year. Bill Goldberg didn't speak for a year, and that was part of the mystique. And pretty much went in there in like a minute, couple minutes, and boom, just started squashing people. Very kind of green as grass, you could say. Didn't know what he was doing. Could talk to William Regal. That match here with William Regal on Nitro, which I saw a couple times, and Goldberg kind of looked all, didn't know what he was doing. Even admitted to a match, Scott Hall, I don't even know what I'm doing. He was green. He was just taught to squash people practically because he had this look and an aura about him. Never really learned how to work functionally in the ring, like a lot of guys do when they're on top. Even a guy like Hogan had some, skill of that. But Bret Hart and Kevin Nash talk a lot about that. They speak on him in that way. Of course, Bret, guy that he is, straight up the way he does it, he's always that tells Goldberg, what he thought of him, and, called him an imbecile, called him a dope, called him reckless. Obviously his kick, and Goldberg even told Bret, watch the kick. I guess Bret didn't know about it at the time. They didn't pre-sprint it out. I don't know if Bill was trying to call the ring, because guys do call the ring, but usually the guys that call the ring are experienced, like Ric Flair and stuff. This guy was not that experienced enough to call the ring. He goes the thing, Bret didn't duck because he couldn't hear it, I guess, and maybe he's confused, and Bill hits him, whack, knocks Bret down. Bret got a bad concussion. Obviously helped end his career. He had a stroke years later. He's rushed after that then. Bret, obviously pulls no punches. He goes on him. And same with Kevin Nash. Kevin Nash goes, dude, you shouldn't be on top. You can't work. And obviously had a match with Scott Hall. Obviously, the late, great Scott Hall, may rest in peace, was Kevin Nash's best friend, and Kevin went off on him, on Bill for that, because he messed up some spots with Scott Hall. Of course, he did good. A lot of shows, this big merchandise, a big draw. Beat Hogan at the Georgia Dome on July 6th. We're coming on next month will be the 26th anniversary. Jesus Christ, time flies by. I was 19 years old when this was all going on. I was 18 when he debuted, but I was like 19 at the time. Still a teenager. This is unbelievable. Now we're just getting online and internet, learning about the internet workings of wrestling, the insider stuff, so I'm kind of starting to understand that talk. And people going off on Goldberg, they can't work and can't stuff, which was true. I'll be honest, I was never the biggest Goldberg fan, but I knew he was a draw. He sold a lot of shirts and stuff. Big draw on TV shows like Jay Leno and stuff like that. But yeah, it wasn't my cup of tea. But I respect he was over. He just wasn't my kind of guy. And he beats Hogan, and then, for his 6 months, he beats DP. A lot of people criticize, why did he give that match with Goldberg on a pay-per-view? No, it gave away on Nitro. Could have made money on pay-per-view. Which I would have done. You could have built that up for 6 months and have him win at Starrcade. I would have had him drop the U.S. title and say a guy, Scott Steiner, was ready for it. Maybe Booker T and Chris Jericho, but one of those guys. And then, maybe even have Hogan screw him in the match. Then you said, you know what, I've won this, going after you, Hogan. So Goldberg chases the Starrcade. Which, coincidentally, turned out to be the end of the streak. Courtesy of Kevin Nash. They say Kevin Nash was on the booking team. Kevin Nash said he got the book afterwards. It's all documented. And, it's what it is. People say politics, but that's the name of the game. A lot of guys, it's politics. Where the wrestling business is, guys on top play politics at times, and it's the nature of the beast in that regard. Not so much now, but back then it really was, it was like a Shark Tank at times, and, you got to make sure, watch who the sharks are. Okay. Okay, standard and practices. Eric Bischoff gets handcuffed by this. I believe this is what caused Eric Bischoff to kind of get pissed at Turner because, there was like, they wanted him, they're doing rolling. This was like in August of 98, I believe. I've heard him say this. And, they're still rolling. They were number 2, and I'm going to get the WD taking the lead in a minute. But they were still competitive with WWE. It was like, couple digit tenths of a point here and there, sometimes almost sometimes a full point, but WCW is in the mix. They're right there, neck and neck. They're both making money. Business was never harder than it is now. at this point. Both companies are red hot at once, went back and forth. They're getting combined 10 ratings some weeks. And all of a sudden, Eric goes up to the office at CNN in Atlanta. A guy's bringing him in, saying, Eric, we're going in a different direction, and we don't want you to do, we don't want you to do those risque stuff, They don't want to do the violence. And I'm like, to me as a fan, I can't, you don't do that. You don't, what's the word for it? You don't go back on something that has worked. WCW was a reality-based company. You can't all of a sudden say, hey, we're going to go to do the kiddie shows like Sesame Street style or Mr. Rogers or Modern Day Talk, Bluey or Paw Patrol. Because that's what my nephews watch, Bluey, Paw Patrol. You can't go back to go to that from you do like a Sopranos style show to all of a sudden doing like I just said, Paw Patrol and Bluey. And I tell you right now, looking back on it, Bischoff, wanted to stand his ground. And he even said in his book that he I think he could have drawn a line in the sand, but, he stayed on, obviously with it. And he knew it was not going to work. You're gearing your product to largely 18 to 34 guys, mostly college guys. I'm in that age range at the time, 18 to 34. Teenagers are watching. You're going to start looking at that, you're going to turn away your audience. WWF took what Eric Bischoff did on Nitro, multiplied it by 10 because WWE wasn't, WWF, well, no one had gone public yet, but they were their own company. It was not a part of a corporation. They're their own entity. They could do what they want, and USA saw the ratings. USA let them do whatever they want. Hey, you're drawing ratings, you do it. TNT, TBS, despite the fact that WWE is bringing the money, they're still they own the company. So it's like, yeah, you're making money, but they still own it. It's not like it's a part, it is a part, well, like WWE and USA WWF and USA were a partnership, but USA was smart enough to realize you're making us money and stuff. What's the only thing? TNT, TBS, they had a lot of other things going on. WC was probably making more money than anybody, but they probably thought, oh, we own you. So we can tell you what to do. Even though technically they could say do what you want. But a lot of people at TBS did not like wrestling, as you know. Just Ted Turner, pretty much, and, maybe a couple others. But it was mostly Ted that kept wrestling going, which I'll get to in another while. And then from there, hold on one second. Yeah. Then there was like an allocation of funds. It turns out WCW, they would, to make up for other divisions of Turner that weren't working, they would take funds out of WCW and put them into their own. And then that's how they tried to sabotage WCW, I believe. And Eric Bischoff went into detail about that on the episode. Speaking of WWE, they took the lead because Steve Austin got fired. Like, he's on my Mount Rushmore for that, one of those reasons. That's one reason on my Mount Rushmore. And he was a great performer and a great character. He's right up there with Flair, Savage, and Ric Flair, Randy Savage, Steve Austin, Shawn Michaels on my Mount Rushmore. We'll get into that other much more stuff. We probably had before, but that's my Mount Rushmore. And, he had Rock, they had DX coming up, and the supporting characters, the mid-card guys had storylines, It was just quite a time, and WWF went ahead. Which gets us to the finger point of doom, January 4th, 1999. And, of course, we all know, I believe this kind of started the collapse of WCW. Maybe not right away. Numbers were still good and stuff, but it eventually would show. And when it did show, it wasn't good. You know what happened? Okay, it was going to be Nash versus Goldberg, a big rematch from the Starrcade where Nash used the cattle prod to end the streak. The streak ended. The end of the streak happened at Starrcade. Goldberg lost to Nash with the cattle prod. And Kevin Sullivan said, listen, just spear him. No, not spear. Just jackknife, beat Goldberg clean like he does everybody else. But they went with the taser thing, with Disco Inferno interviewed, and then Scott Hall had a taser, and he zapped Goldberg, and then Kevin Nash jackknife powerbombs Goldberg, and streak is over, and Nash won the World Heavyweight title. And then he said in Atlanta, let's have the rematch, let's do it right, see if we can win on his own. So they said, the rematch, the January 4th episode of Nitro from the Georgia Dome, like, 35, 40,000, somewhere in there. It's the man. Everybody knows Nash and Goldberg is gonna fight. And all of a sudden, they did a concocted angle with where Goldberg was hitting on Elizabeth. They want to do like a Stark angle, and it didn't get over well. And then Hogan shows up. Hogan was pretending he was gonna run for president, and then he shows up and he says, "I'm challenging Nash." Nash said, "You want to fight tonight? Let's do it." So Hogan Nash is on. Goldberg's over being held by the cops and security across the street over in Georgia, at Georgia Dome. Their security things. So we get in the ring. Nash and Hogan look at eye and eye. All of a sudden, Hogan points Nash in the chest right here with his finger, and boom! Nash falls down. Hogan goes 1, 2, 3, and they're all jumping up, celebrating. They swerved everybody. Hogan and Nash is celebrating. The rest of the NWO guys, I think it was Scott Steiner in there, Scott Hall, Lex Luger, Buff Bagwell. They all beat down Goldberg, tasered him a few times. They put spray paint all over him, and yeah, that was part of the collapse. That was not fun. And then to make it worse, they announced that Mick Foley, they called Mick Foley basically not saying piece of crap. They basically called him a piece of crap. Might as well. Bischoff ordered Tony Schiavone to say Mick Foley, who won our who wrestled here as Cactus Champ, is going to win the WWF World title, and that'll put butts in seats. Well, it turned the ratings over because after that, WWF, they gained a lot of viewers from there, and WWF was winning in the ratings by then anyway by a few months, and then after that, they kind of started to take control. Come on, so you can really see the difference, but that's figure point two. It started the collapse of WCW. There was other things, but that kind of started it. And then after that, in 1999, Eric Bischoff went to office with Harvey Shulman and said, "We got to let you go today." They kind of, turned his back on him. And then, the merger with AOL Time Warner didn't help anything. When Ted Turner a few years earlier had merged with Gerald Levin, Time Warner, Turner. Time Warner bought Turner. Could have been the other way around. Turner should have bought Time Warner. But then Ted lost control, and, Eric got sent home in 99, and what that. But next week's episode should be very interesting. You haven't seen the last of Eric Bischoff in WCW up to this point. There's going to be more start next week. And, we get into the stuff with certain guy, writer from New York, Vince Russo, comes in. And, we're going to see what happens there. All right, have a good night, everybody. I'll be talking to you tomorrow. Oh, no, not tomorrow. Whatever. I might be doing another show later on tonight for something else. So, be talking with you soon next week on Who Killed WCW Recap Show. Good night.